Okay. Looks like we got that sorted out only 10 minutes late. Uh, Sorry about that, Marty. Had a little bit of streaming, I don't know, hiatus brain there. But so, welcome everybody. Looks like I can see us now up on the channel. Thanks for waiting. So, as the title of the stream says, Marty and I are going to chat about some Justice League stuff. We both got a chance to watch that over the weekend. And so we were spoiling to talk about it. I figured we'll just do it in front of a few folks here on the internet. So welcome, Marty.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this. It's not something I get to do a lot.
Me neither. Me neither. So a couple of comments in the chat. There will be spoilers. Hopefully, from what I understand, I haven't actually watched the original, the Joss Whedon cut, I guess you'd call it. But from what I understand,
The Justice League is what we're calling it.
Justice League, nice. Yeah, I haven't seen that. Marty, you've seen that original one, right?
In the theater, baby.
Okay. Yeah, I was warned off it by you and many others. I think the whole world did not enjoy that particular one.
So if we're setting a baseline,
Yeah.
we're just going to jump into it. If we're setting a baseline, when I walked out of the theater, I probably gave that out of 10, probably a 4 or 5.
Okay.
And it was probably one of my least favorite DCU movie. I mean, I think Suicide Squad I like the least. I think this was the next least, but it was because it was supposed to be this big epic thing, and I just think it failed on a few accounts.
Right.
And so I was excited. Well, excited. I don't know. When last year when they said, the hashtag release the Snyder cut
Right.
started going around, and the actors were even saying, release the Snyder cut. I thought, okay, well, maybe there's something there that that we were supposed to see that we didn't see. So I was excited to sit down and watch. Okay, this. For those who don't know, Zack Snyder had to leave the project because of a death in his family, and it was handed over to somebody else, Joss Whedon, who reshot some of the stuff. A lot of the same things were used, but some of the beats, so the story beats and stuff, and new scenes were shot. So I think it's cool that they gave the chance for the original writer, creator, visionary person to say, okay, let me tell my story, and we got a chance to see that.
Cool. So you gave that one, you said 5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would you give this one, the new one, just to jump into that part of it?
Not, 7 to 8.
7 to 8. Okay.
Out of 10. Yeah, it didn't. I mean, it wasn't 9 or 10 for me, but like I said, I think I'm more excited that Zack Snyder, and I'm not a huge Zack Snyder fan. There's some things I like of his, some things I don't like of his. I just think it's really cool that we got to see the movie the way it was intended to be shown, and they gave him a chance to do that.
Yeah. And I think my score would be it'd probably be a 7. We'll get into some of my gripes later, probably some of yours too. But just to re-clarify, there will be spoilers. So hopefully, even though I think the general plot is a couple of years old, there's definitely some differences from my understanding. So that you might have some stuff spoiled for you here. So you set a baseline. So one of the questions we went over beforehand was, did you think this needed to be made? And my answer is obviously yes, because I never saw the original because I was scared away from it. What would you say? I think you'd say yes too, right?
Again, I would say yes, just for giving the guy who didn't get a chance to tell his story to tell his story.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, should we go with the good or the bad? Because I have both with this one. I have a lot of good, and I have a fair amount of, I call it bad. What would you prefer? We jump in.
Man, I don't know. So what I've done is I've wrote notes for each of the characters.
Okay.
And I don't know whether do you want to do it chronologically from the start of the movie to the end of the movie? However you want. It's your show, man.
No, I don't mind doing the character bit, because I think that's actually where a lot of my good and bad come from. Because there's parts of certain characters in the show that I thought was great, and other parts of other characters, or maybe the same characters, that was bad. So we can walk through character by character. I think that works good, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So pick a character. You're the guest, right? So you get first choice there.
Let's go with some of the easier ones, like Batman or Aquaman.
Let's do Aquaman.
Because Aquaman, because I don't. It's been a few years since it's been since it was released. I saw the original. I did watch a video that kind of compared the Justice League and the Snyder cut, and Aquaman didn't change too much.
Okay.
A lot of the same stuff that was in the original was here. They didn't add much to him.
Now they
So I don't know if you've seen it for the first time. What do you think about
Well,
him?
the one thing with him was this was his introduction, right? Because his movie came out after Justice League. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was tricky for me because I had all of that backstory, and it took me like not very long, but maybe 30 seconds or a minute. I was like, oh yeah, he isn't really, hooked up with his people again. He's still kind of a nomad and kind of a loner on the run and stuff. So it took me a second to kind of re-jive with that. And then I was thinking, well, what if I had seen this, fresh without having seen Aquaman? And it was real tough for me to gauge what my reaction would have been. I thought it was, I kind of liked his character in this. I think, and this is going to be a repeat of me throughout the whole show here probably, but I really wish they would have done more of the MCU thing where they built up and had each of the characters had their own movie kind of thing going into it.
Mhm.
But I think it kind of worked because he was a little bit mysterious. You don't really know what he was about and what his sort of, his motivations were or anything like that. And I thought that was kind of cool, but it was hard to kind of retroactively watch that because, I've seen the Aquaman movie and he's kind of in that he kind of had it come full circle in a way through the course of that movie. But I did like it. I thought maybe he was underutilized because he's been developed since that movie's come out with his own movie. And I thought like there
Mhm.
was a little bit missing there, but that was, you probably picked the trickiest character for me to have an opinion about.
Sorry.
No, but I mean, I think he is the trickiest one to see if he got proper screen time or if it was used right or whatever. But I enjoy his character generally. I know a lot of people didn't really like Aquaman. I think there's a lot of mixed views about that, but I enjoyed that movie for what it was. It was fun. It was a lot of dumb action. There was a huge
Mhm.
battle at the end. It was kind of a slapsticky kind of thing. I like that kind of stuff. It's a good summer flick, that Aquaman, and he feels like a summer flick kind of character. Big action, lots of stupid jokes.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Again, I'm going off memory, but I think the William Defoe scenes were new in the Snyder cut.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think William Defoe, and chat who's ever listening can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think William Defoe was in it. So they he would have been introduced, and he has a bigger role in the Aquaman movie.
Yeah.
We get to see a cool battle scene with Dark Side underwater.
Yeah.
What was that scene for? It was the only time that he used his eye bolts,
Right.
and I was wanting to see more of that. I think it was the only time I saw it was underwater when he used
Well,
those.
wasn't that like a dream or a flash forward or something, or was that part of his? Was that part of the flashback with when he was on Earth? I felt like that's a flash forward.
Maybe it was a flash forward. Oh, I know one of the things they did change.
Yeah.
So Hera, was that the Aquaman's girlfriend's name? Hera, is that her
I thought it was
name?
Mira or something.
Mira.
Yeah.
Wow, Marty. Yeah, Mira. Mira. So the scene where Steppenwolf, they're doing a battle,
Yeah.
and she uses her power to suck all the water out of him.
Right.
So in the theatrical release, basically, it cuts to him pinning her up against a wall, and then he just throws her aside.
Oh.
They cut out the whole thing about her using her power of being able to pull water out of him and basically killing him. That's why she was thrown to the side, because he was going to die. It was like, okay, that was a pretty cool scene
Yeah.
that she, what she was doing to him, and Whedon took it out.
Yeah. I thought that was a really cool scene. Just because there's so many cool things you can do with the water. Like when the one part where I can't remember what they were doing. They were in the original base in the nuclear plant, and then water was coming in. I don't think it was that far. It was at some point, and then Aquaman kind of showed up with the water. So that was his, like, his arrival to the team, and him kind of
Hmm.
fighting back and having to push back the water. And sorry to do this, but funny random thing. I'm painting my Idoneth Deacon army.
Hmm.
That's like the Aquaman army, and yeah, so I'm really like into that right now, and their little water effects and stuff. But I love when movies do that, where they take something that's so just like benign and basic, like water, and then they have these powers and people just doing things with it that shouldn't be done. Which is one of the reasons I liked Aquaman, because it's just neat. That whole,
Right.
like, sometimes they'll like create a bubble and talk in it and have a little conversation, and then they'll go back to the water, and just a cool dynamic, something people can play with. But yeah, so Aquaman, I would say I kind of right down the middle with him. Like, I think more could have been done with him. And I saw one thing come in the chat. They didn't really like his whole like cowabunga dude thing. Um, I don't mind that, because he's kind of like a beach bum in a way. Although I think Jason Momoa is he's Hawaiian, or he's Tahitian or something, or Samoan or something. I don't remember where he's from, but he's like an island dude. So that's
Hmm.
coming across. But in the movies, you only see him like way up north, like in Alaska. And I don't know many people from Alaska, but like the cowabunga dude, surfer dude attitude, I don't know. Maybe that's prevalent up there. Um, but it is kind of a weird dynamic. But I think the gist of it is he's like a water guy. So they had to throw in, maybe it's a little stereotypical or something, but it's like, what's up, dude? He's got that thing and drinking beer all the time. Um, but I don't mind that. I
He,
could see people getting kind of sick of that.
he goes through a lot of sweaters.
He he does. I don't know who was it in the group chat that said every time Aquaman goes back in the water, he takes his shirt off and then leaves his jacket on the ground. And then when he
It's
shows
like
up next time,
so.
he's got a shirt on.
So when he comes up out of the water, is he go grab another shirt just to be throwing it away later? I don't know.
He gets one from his
It's like
closet.
keep the pants on, take the shirt off. I know. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tricky character, I think, for sure, Aquaman. Okay, let's move on to let's take Superman. Let's just jump right into the other side of things.
Wow. All righty.
So, what were your thoughts on his treatment in this cut?
So Superman was the one they had to really kind of fix. So I'm sure you heard the whole thing with the mustache,
Oh yeah,
Henry Cavill,
yeah,
because at the time he was shooting the Mission Impossible movie and he had a mustache. Was that the one?
yeah. He was.
Trying to remember if he had a mustache in Mission Impossible. It may have been that one.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so Joss brought him back for this scene at the very beginning of the Weed movie that's not in this one at all.
Hmm.
And it's a really bad CGI thing. But anyway, so he got the treatment of coming back. Things I liked in the original, it wasn't the black Superman suit. If you read the comics, you know that after he dies, he comes back donning the black suit.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was cool to see him in that. Um, I do. There was a scene in the movie that I'm glad that was in both of these, and I'm glad they didn't get rid of it. So right when Kal-El shows up, he's kind of messed up, right? He doesn't know who he is. These people are attacking him and everything. One of the best scenes I think in the movie is when basically, gosh, who was it? He just threw away Batman, Aquaman's there, Wonder Woman. They're all fighting him, and Flash is deciding I'm going to flank this guy and take him
Yeah.
out. And it's such a cool slow motion scene of basically Superman cutting his eyes over. It's like,
Yeah.
holy crap, he can see him coming.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool scene. I'm glad they left that in there because that was in the original. I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that was
But
neat.
but the way they brought him back, I thought was a lot better done and more fleshed out than in the original.
Okay. Yeah, I thought his was pretty. He was good. I'm not a big Superman guy just because he's like a Superman shows up and we all win. That's, but I mean, everybody's heard that argument before. I have enjoyed, for the most part, this kind of trilogy of Man of Steel / Superman movies. I don't know what it is. It's something about the look of it and the vibe of it. There's like an extra level of seriousness to it, which I kind of can take or leave. Like sometimes I really like it because it's just this awesome responsibility and this awesome power, and it gets. Well, here's one of the things I didn't like. Let's throw in a not like. We've been pretty kind so far, but
Mhm.
the amount of slow motion in this movie, I think extended it by an hour. And
Yeah.
one of the things is like every time Superman would show up, it would do this big slow motion, like religiously overtoned shot of him. And I'm like, I get it. He's like a savior character. And it's like, I wish they would just quit beating me over the head with that. I did like, that was part of Batman vs. Superman that I did like, because they really addressed that like right away in that movie, where sort of the side effect of Man of Steel and the fights and Metropolis being half destroyed and people being so in awe of this super character and all this stuff. And they really addressed it, and he had to go in front of Congress and all this thing and, try to explain himself because he's such like on a different level. And I like that part of it. But then after a while, it's like, I wish I would just quit getting beat over the head with it, and, so again, this is another one I'm kind of mixed on because I'm not really a big Superman fan in general, although I love the original Christopher Reeves movie. I mean, that's to me is somehow I think it's still underrated. I think it's a great movie, even though he flies around the earth and travels time, whatever. But
I mean, yeah, it's tough because Superman's a little OP, right? I mean, yeah, there's basically one thing. He has two weaknesses, right? It's kryptonite and magic, and everything else. He pretty much take care of everything else. One scene that I do know that was different is when he shows up at the end to fight Steppenwolf, and Steppenwolf has his axe, and Superman comes down and he freezes his axe.
Yeah,
that was new.
Okay, that was cool. That was super cool.
Yep.
When he did that, yeah. So I did like his whole arc though, where he kind of gets back in touch, with his human side or whatever, with his emotions, and he goes back home and he's with Lois and all that kind of stuff, and then he's like, hey, I got to go figure out why they need me and everything. I feel like though this, and honestly, Marty, this really bothers me that they killed him in his second movie, because it's like that's too soon for that, and I wish we would have gone like a movie without him at all, just to see what would the ramifications be and build that up. Like and again, I'm going to say this again and again, it's probably not fair, but I wish they could slow burn this stuff a little bit more so you can really feel immersed in the effects. So one thing that the MCU has not really done, and maybe they're going to do with Winter Soldier and stuff, is give you the effects of the blip, of the Thanos snap, and see what life was like. We never really got a chance to see what life was like after Superman had passed, and we really didn't get to have a chance to see what life was like with Superman now on the scene. Like, we didn't really get enough time to sit with it. So that'd be my one kind of critique there. I want to sit with it a little bit more on either side of it. But generally, for the speed at which the story was delivered, I generally liked the Superman stuff.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's one reason I did not like Batman versus Superman. Number one, I think they just botched the whole Doomsday story.
Yeah,
because that's not the way that was not the way Doomsday was in the comics. The way it was in comics was amazing. Yeah. And somehow Lex Luthor was involved with it and everything. So I knew the guy was going to have to die at the end because I figured, well, they're going to kill him off. And it's like, he's only been in one movie, so he's going to die in the second. And then when JLA was announced, and it's like, well, he's obviously got to come back for that. I feel the exact same way. It should have been MCU-ish. Everybody gets an intro movie. At some point in time, Superman dies. Then we have some other movies from other people that kind of acknowledge, wow, he's gone now. And now we have to have this responsibility, then come out with JLA and let him come back.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you get the next character.
All right, let's go ahead and knock out Batman because there's really not much there for him. Not much really changed for him either. They took out there were some Whedon jokes that were put in there that he put in there that he gave Batman some of them, and they were in the trailer from the original. Those were gone. I'm glad some of those were gone. But Batman was basically there to be the leader, to bring everybody together, and that was pretty much his whole thing. He didn't do much more than that. You're talking about something that took forever. The movie could have been 5 minutes shorter if they would have cut out 4 minutes of him at the very beginning of the movie of showing Bruce Wayne riding on a horse and walking on mountains at the beginning of the movie. It's like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to go on? They just kept more mountains, another horse. He's still walking the horse. He's still walking the horse. Okay, we get it.
Yeah.
We get it. That's one of those things that you had the slow mo issue. I had an issue just with that one. I'm sitting there thinking, there was a lot of scenes like that where you could have cut out 30 to 45 seconds and probably cut the movie by 30 minutes.
Yeah. Again, I think the Batman is probably the character I like the most, other than Cyborg, which we can talk about. I think those two are kind of tied. You know, I have this different view of that character because everybody, like, Batman is this ubiquitous, right? And we had the Nolan trilogy recently and all that stuff. And what I would like to see with Batman is actually, I don't want him to get his own movie, or prior to these. I would like a couple movies even coming up to have be like flashbacks, because they've had references to Dick Grayson being killed by the Joker, and not Jason Todd actually, because if you look at it, it's actually Dick Grayson's suit. So
which bothers me, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been like 5 Robins, so I mean, just pick one and kill him.
I know, but again, there's canon there because Jason Todd was killed by the Joker.
Right. So I think a flashback movie would work in this case, but I have liked the whole like Batman thread of him having these dreams of or possibly visions of the multiverse where these different, apocalyptic endings are possible, and that kind of driving him. I mean, it's a very, like, I'll be honest, a very Tony Stark aspect, because, in the MCU, Tony Stark has the visions a little bit of Thanos and all that stuff, and then ends up coming back. And apparently they were planning to actually kill Batman off in like the second or third Justice League movie. I watched a video the other day where they kind of explained what the possible outcomes of Justice League 2 and 3 would have been. And he would have ended up giving his life at some point. But I like his idea, because he's like the most human out of all of the different heroes in this case. But on the other hand, he's also the leader. And so he's kind of bringing everybody together, and he's got kind of the mind and the craftiness. And he's going to be the one to kind of see everybody through this apocalypse, theoretically. So I really like this character, the way they've done him there. But I would like to see a flashback movie to kind of tie up some of those ends and see what his relationship with the Joker is. And I don't know. It's, again, there's been like, there's a Joker movie, there's the Nolan movies. Now there's this Man of Steel / trilogy. I wish they would really just get it together and bring them all together. But generally, I liked the Batman arc.
Yep. Somebody mentioned in the chat, and this is an interesting question, though. I know that we've talked before offline. Are you okay with the DC movies having more of a dark tone and the Marvel being more light?
I would be, but they haven't earned the dark tone, I don't think. Like, we didn't move into that, really. We just started. I mean, Batman is a dark character. He has been since the beginning, and then he went back to, like, in the 60s not being dark, and then, back in the 80s and 90s. So I don't mind him being dark, because he's a dark figure. His parents were killed, and, he took on a life of vengeance and everything. But, yeah, I would like to see more progression, because if you really think about it, Infinity War and Endgame were pretty dark. I mean, they had their lighthearted moments.
True.
But we moved there. We got to that point. Like the first Wonder Woman movie and the second one, which wasn't good, but we're not that dark, actually. So it would have been nice to...
Aquaman wasn't dark.
No, Aquaman wasn't really dark. Yeah. But I would have liked to have seen some more progression. Again, some more development to get us to that dark place. Yeah. What about yourself? What do you think of the whole DC is the emo version of Marvel?
Oh, nice. That's a good term. It doesn't bother me. So I don't know if you've watched a lot of the animated stuff, but a lot of the DC animated stuff tends more towards the serious dark side. I mean, even in the 90s with Batman, the animated series, I don't know if you know this, but that was when that was hand drawn. It was drawn on black instead of
Right.
white to give a darker look to it. And it definitely has a dark tone that started in the 90s. And that carried through to a lot of the animated stuff from the Justice League. I mean, there were some very serious topics that were covered in those
Hmm.
things that for a cartoon has some pretty mature
Right.
topics. So I'm okay with it because I'm kind of used to it from the animated stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. I haven't really followed much of the animated side of it. There's a good comment there in the chat though about the whole like Greek tragedy stuff sort of permeating all of the DC stuff. That I do like because it sets itself apart from Marvel. Like Marvel at the end of the day is actually a very sci-fi universe because once you start to get off of Earth and start to get out into space, you have all these different characters: Guardians of the Galaxy, the Starjammers, the Brood, the whole thing. I forget what the planet was where Thor goes, but like if you've ever read the
Mm-hmm,
Planet Hulk series, I mean he's on this
mm-hmm,
planet and they sort of allude to that in Thor Ragnarok, but it's completely different. But he basically takes over this whole planet and is ruling the planet for a little while in a way. And so it's very sci-fi oriented, and there's like all this other stuff. But in DC, it really is about like these Greek style god figures in a lot of ways. And I'm sure there's some analogous types of things. I mean, literally have them like Zeus and Ares and Wonder Woman in a way, and all that kind of stuff. So I like that because it gives it a different vibe. So maybe some of that Greek tragedy stuff sort of seeps into it a little bit more. But it's neat. It's different.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, and they're called the new gods. So I
Yeah,
mean, they kind of borrowing on that anyway.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And if you look at the Marvel version of that, which is the Eternals, which we're supposed to be getting a movie of, I think next year, it's the
Huh?
same level of concept there, but the treatment is totally different. Like the vibe is so different. Um, but it's that same sort of level of power and sort of, I don't know, omniscience or whatever. And they're both Jack Kirby things, so it's kind of interesting to see. Um, they rebooted those books, I think, in the '90s or something. And I read a lot of New Gods and Eternals, and I couldn't really
Mm.
tell you which one I liked better. I think the Eternals because there's a really really cool Eternal story that marries up with Thor, and it kind of they do that Ragnarok storyline they always spin up every 10 years with Thor, and that's just really neat how it
Mm-hmm.
works there with that. But yeah, okay, so next character.
I want to save the two that probably has the most discussion for last. Let's do Wonder
Okay,
Woman.
fair.
Um, Again, I don't know if there was a lot of a treatment done with this. The very beginning of her saving the people in the bank is a much longer scene. I
Hmm.
think there's some really cool action sequences in there where she's using her bracelets and stuff
Yeah.
to block bullets and everything like that. All that was not in the original release. So that whole scene there was just longer.
Hmm.
And I know I shared it with you, Joel. For anybody who watches the Screen Rants, Ryan George just did his pitch meeting for the Snyder
Hmm.
Cut, and the running gag was the the music every time Wonder Woman showed up on the screen. That was 100% true.
Yeah, they kick into her
But
theme music, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I love her theme song, by the
Yeah.
way. But I mean, Gal Gadot is amazing. I was talking to my wife the other night about it, and I said, I think one of the best castings of all these people by far is Gal Gadot. It's like she is Wonder Woman,
Yeah.
and to me, Linda Carter will always be kind of the pinnacle because that's who I grew up with. But man, she's right up there with her. She is so good in that character, and she carried it through in this movie, and had a good storyline too. She was
Hmm.
tough, man. She's tough. I love her.
Yeah. No, I liked her as well. I do have actually a problem with that opening scene though because she spent
Hmm.
all this time blocking all these
I know where you
bullets,
go.
and I'm like, if you're that fast, why don't you just go over there and bend that guy's gun nozzle up? Like, I mean, I don't know. It's silly because it's just comic book stuff, but I was like, you could have just did that, and then you wouldn't have had it. No, none of those people would have been in all that danger. But
And then, like in the Screen Rant, she blows away the building, which she should have been protecting from
oh
blowing
yeah,
up.
exactly. I forget how it blew up. How did it blow up? Because she. Oh, because she did
Somehow
her cross thing. Yeah.
yeah, she clinked her bracelets together and it caused an explosion. I don't know. That was kind of new to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. That's the other thing that bugs me about her character. Is like, just do that right away. It's like Voltron with the sword. Just pull the sword out, Voltron. You know, because they always have Voltron fighting for
Oh,
like 10 minutes, and then Voltron gets his butt kicked, and then he's like, "I guess it's time to pull the sword out," and then he just cuts the thing in half that it's fighting.
that's like in the first Pacific Rim. I had the same
Yeah,
issue. It's
exactly.
like just pull the sword out.
No, but I really like her character. I think my favorite DC movie is the first Wonder Woman, and probably my least favorite is the second Wonder Woman because it was just
Yeah,
horrifying. Um,
yep. Yeah, I hope the third one they do is a lot better. But
Now, if I'm sure they've signed up to do the third one. I don't know. Is it a done deal? They're going to make it for sure? Or?
I think so.
Okay.
The only thing is, I think Patty Jenkins is in charge again. I think she did an amazing job directing the first one,
Yeah.
but maybe the writing should be left to somebody else.
Yeah. That kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, she was good in this one. I like how she's basically Superman, but not quite. You know.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of a cool thing. For some reason I like when her and Superman fight. I don't know why, but because this is like, ooh, who's actually stronger? Superman has like a couple
Yep.
extra tools in his kit though. He's got the eye beams and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But like strength wise, she's like
Yep.
right there. I don't know. It's a cool
Yep.
character.
Hmm.
Um. Okay. Yeah. She was good. Okay. Now we got. Let's start with Flash because I want to end on a high note.
Okay.
Um. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Because this is gonna be my lowest note. So I purposely wore my Flash shirt because my two all-time favorite comic book heroes are Flash and Green Lantern,
Yeah.
and I'll touch on Green Lantern
Yeah.
later. So when I saw the first movie and I saw Ezra Miller as cast as Barry Allen, it's like, well, number one, he doesn't even to me remotely look like Barry Allen. At least the person that was cast in the CW show, at least he has the look. They hit all the right beats in the CW show. He's a forensic scientist.
Hmm.
He gets the powers the way they do in the comics. With this character, I can't remember. I don't think they tell you how he got the powers. He's just
Oh
introduced.
yeah.
He has super
Yeah.
speed. He's a
Mm-hmm.
teenager. He's the comic
Right.
relief. One of the scenes I could not stand is when he basically saves Iris West, and the whole time he's saving her from this tragedy, he's grabbing a hot dog out of the air to put in his pocket. He's brushing the hair beside her face. I'm like, okay, this is just now
That was
creepy at
creepy.
this
That
point.
was super creepy when he did the hair thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I didn't like that at all. So he's the comic relief. So the things I don't like is he should have been Wally
Mm-hmm.
West. Wally West was always the young guy who was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in the Justice League. This is amazing. I can't believe I'm around these guys." Barry Allen was a
Right.
peer to these other people. He didn't like. He was one of them. Wally West was the one that was like, "I'm in awe of all these people." So I wish it had been cast as Wally West. However, one thing I do like, and this was different from the original. In the original, at the very end, Flash's job was to help save this family from an explosion or something. He helped put this family in the back of a pickup truck and get them out of town or something. I'm vague. I vaguely remember that's how it
You're saying that's
was.
in the
That didn't
original?
exist
Okay. Okay.
in the original. So that didn't exist in this. But what did exist and I love is if you look back at through the history of DC Comics, the linchpin is always Flash. It's always
Mm-hmm.
Flash. And that's
Right.
what happened here. I mean, basically, they lost.
Right.
And Flash said, there's only one way I can fix this. And basically, I've got to run faster to the speed of light to reverse time and try to fix this. He's the one that gave the energy to bring Superman back. If you read the comics, Flashpoint is all about him. Crisis on Infinite Earths in the 80s, Barry Allen sacrificed himself to save
Right.
everyone. So I think it's cool that they still saw, you know what, Flash even in the JLA animated series, there's one amazing episode where he saves the day. Um, it actually was a sad one, brought tears to your eyes. But anyway, it always comes back to him. So I think it was cool that they let him be the guy that actually saved everybody in the end. But I wish it had been Wally West
Yeah.
instead of Barry
Yeah.
Allen.
Yeah. I love that reverse time piece, and they did a lot of the Quicksilver bit from the X-Men movies, where he runs around and he's just slowly like adjusting people and making sure they fall in such a way so they're not going to get hurt and all that. But it was super creepy when he brushed that girl's hair. So I was like, "Whoa, you're trying to save her, man! You're like taking advantage now." I didn't like that at all. But he was grabbing the hot dog to feed to the dogs, and I thought that was really smart because he's trying to pretend like he's like, oh, after all this craziness happens, I need to be back in this interview, so I need a little doggy snack. So I thought that was actually kind of clever.
True.
But yeah, he's a character that absolutely 100% needed a intro movie. Because like you don't know where he's got the powers. He was introduced in Batman v Superman when he came from the future, and he's got all this other stuff going on, and his dad's in jail. And why is his dad in jail? And what's the relationship there? Like, that's something that I wanted to care about. And I want to see, what's the relationship there with his dad and him and all that stuff. And, but I was like, no, this is such fluff to me. And then at the end, when he had that kind of emotional moment where he was like sort of talking to his dad in his head, nothing. I mean, I don't know what's involved there. So that's one that I think they 100% should have had some kind of lead-in movie, so we actually cared about the character.
And what's funny is you're going to get a Flash movie after this.
Oh, they're making a Flash movie?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
He's, from what I understand, and it's going to be supposedly Flashpoint. And if you haven't read the Flashpoint series, Flashpoint is basically the multi-Earths in DC. Right. That's what Flashpoint's kind of about. Yeah,
they got to go there because, I mean, they really beat that whole multiverse thing over the head in this one. So that'll be cool. Yeah, Flash should be like kind of an Ant-Man character, like he's able to bend the very fabric of space and time in a lot of ways, and then he's also funny.
Yeah, and again, if you want to be funny, then go Wally and not Barry. But again, that's just me being a Flash fan. I just never saw Ezra Miller as basically. And what's interesting in the animated series, it is Wally West, and Wally West plays that role of the young comical guy. In fact, the guy who voiced him was Michael Rosenberg, who played Lex Luthor on Smallville. And he was always cracking jokes and everything like that. So it was like, I've already seen this character in the animated series, and it was Wally West. And here you're making a different character. But
so before we get to Cyborg, you mentioned Green Lantern, who does show up in this film in a way. And for the life of me, I can't tell you the name of that Green Lantern. Because I was probably, other than Batman, I would read Green Lantern as far as DC goes back in the day. I really like Green Lantern. It's just the neatest power. It's just his imagination is his power is really what it is, and I really like that.
It's the most powerful weapon in the universe.
Yeah, it is. And go ahead.
My second favorite character is Green Lantern, by the way, so I'm right there with you.
So I like that he showed up and then he promptly was killed by Darkseid. But that was cool that they referenced it, and then they reference also like, there's no lanterns here. There's no lanterns at all. Hang on. Okay. It looks like my OBS disconnected and reconnected, so we'll see what happens on the chat here. It looks like it's still working. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, the lanterns have like a proximity of space that they're in charge of protecting. So I'm like, well, why is there no lanterns? I'm like, oh, maybe there's a little clue there. There's a story. They'll do a Green Lantern movie or something. But I like that they had it because he's the one missing guy really from the Justice League, other than like Hawkman, I think. Like, the old school traditional Justice League. I'm not really sure. I might be missing some other folks, but I think the prime movers are all in there. Yeah, anyway, I thought it was cool that they dropped him in. He wasn't in the original, as far as I know, right? At all.
He was not at all. And I do love that they dropped the whole lantern thing. And kind of a side note, To me, what Guardians of the Galaxy did for the MCU of introducing other
Yeah.
worlds, cosmic space, DC can do with the Green Lantern Corps movie today. And I wish they would do it. You haven't got to give me Hal Jordan on Earth. If you want to give me
Yeah.
one of the human Green Lanterns, fine, but put him with the Green Lantern Corps out in space and let me see that whole group of police
Yeah.
basically, do their job out in
That would be
space.
neat. That would be neat. I would be into that. Again, that's something they should have had that going into uh, the mother box. I hate the name of that too. The mother box.
the
Like,
the boom tube and mother
yeah, it's
box.
like you guys got Infinity Stone sounds so much cooler than mother box.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. Here. So did you see what the original Steppenwolf looked like?
I did. It's not really fresh in my memory. Um,
It's a dude and it's a guy wearing an
uh
outfit.
huh.
It looks horrible. I'm so glad they changed that up. He looks so much better now than what he did.
Hmm. Let me see here.
And yeah, look it up while I say this. He had this weird infatuation with mother boxes, like he wanted to date one and make out with it.
Oh,
It
weird.
was creepy. So they got rid of all that junk. I mean, mother boxes are just basically,
Hmm.
things, but this guy had like a physical desire to be with
Oh
one.
wow.
It was creepy. Yeah. So the Steppenwolf character is much better in this version than it was in the
Hmm.
original. Somebody said in the chat, John Stewart. I'd love to see any of them. I'd take them all. Alan Scott, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner would be interesting too. John Stewart. I'd take any Green Lantern at this point. They all have their pluses and
Right.
minuses.
Right. Yeah, he looks. I don't know. He looks kind of goofy. I'm looking at the original one now. I'm not really sure what's up.
Yeah, he was good. But anyway, uh, so yeah. So you're saving the your favorite for
That's right.
last. Say.
Yeah, and this is and I think it's been said online before because I watched a video after I watched this that this really was the Cyborg movie, and I totally agree with that. And I think like this introduced him, it carried his character through, provided the backstory. In a lot of ways, he was the effective linchpin in sort of them winning, barring Flash, you know, uh,
Mhm.
reversing time. But he was the guy that could interface with the mother box, and he
Mhm.
was built from a mother box and all this stuff. I do kind of wish he had his own movie, but I thought, it's cool that they can take a ensemble movie and still introduce a character and and provide all that stuff. And he had some really neat things where he was kind of like he went through the whole thing of accepting himself and his new condition, and I thought it was cool, like when he gave that money to the lady through the ATM and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And so his power was very different. We haven't really seen a character like this at all in the MCU or DC in terms of the movies. That is sort of this techie character, who's plugged into the internet all the time and can do all this stuff. Um, so I really like this character, and it was just a nice nice to have that arc of introducing kind of an origin story alongside all these other characters. So that I really like that.
Which was a big. Which was a yeah. I really have nothing else to add to Cyborg. He was the best fix from the original. And I was going to say, I mean, in the original, so this is the first time you're seeing Flash, first time you're seeing
Right.
Cyborg, first time you're seeing Aquaman
Mm,
in a 2 hour
right.
movie. And that's why I couldn't stand it. It's
Right.
like I'm supposed to accept all these characters. You throw Cyborg on the screen. Where did he come from? What can he do? Oh, there's Flash. Okay, so he can run. Oh, here's Aquaman. And in the end, they save the world. It's like I have no attachment to any of these guys. So
100%.
Snyder getting 2 extra hours to give Barry Allen a couple extra scenes, but mainly to flesh out Cyborg was that
Yeah.
was to me. It was like I'm glad Snyder got to do that because I think everybody appreciates Cyborg way more than what they did from the first one. That was the biggest plus from the old to the new.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I didn't see the original, but it was probably the biggest plus of the whole movie was either Cyborg for me was the best character, and I also liked all the fleshing out of the multiverse apocalypse stuff. You know,
Hmm.
that was the other part I really liked. A lot of that stuff in the epilogue and um, that stuff was neat.
But let's if you got anything else, a cyborg, I want to talk with you about the
Yeah,
epilogue. It kind of depresses me. It kind of depresses
yeah,
me. Because basically we see what Snyder's vision was for future movies, and we'll never get to see it now. Because
yeah.
uh, if you haven't read it, basically they're teasing Injustice, where basically Lois Lane dies
Hmm.
and Superman basically loses it, and basically everybody else has to work together against Superman. So that's that whole thing at the end that Batman has the dream about. But that was just some cool scenes when he has that. Oh, number one, thank you for redoing the Joker makeup on Jared Leto. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting rid of that, the grill and stuff from
Oh, yeah,
from
forgot about the
Suicide
grill.
Squad.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
it was bad. So I love the interaction between them two. And come on, could there not be in a better place to f bomb than
Oh,
Batman just saying,
yeah.
I'm going to f and kill you"? I thought, oh my gosh, that's Batman right there.
Yeah,
Bravo.
that was super funny. Yeah, I like that little tidbit of Harley dying in Batman's arms, wishing death upon the Joker, and he was like, "Sure, I'll do it." And I'm like, "Whoa, what happened there? I got to see that." You know, that was neat.
Yep, yeah, and gosh, it was so. I know so. There's all this stuff that was like we'll never get to see. That would have Snyder obviously would have done, because I don't think Snyder's. I think they're done.
Yeah,
I think that's it. He's walking away from this. But obviously he had ideas for stuff in the future, and I think that would have been cool. I mean, obviously they teased Martian
hmm
Manhunter. I don't know what they would have done with him, but that was kind of a weird scene with him playing as Martha. What was the
yeah.
purpose of that? I guess except to say, oh, there's Martian Manhunter.
I don't know. I mean, it introduced him. I think they should have just gotten rid of that and then just had him at the end. But what he ended up being the military guy. So I think, is that who he actually is the military guy, and he's been that all along?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. John Jones.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's strange because he never revealed himself to Superman in the other two movies until, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of strange. But it feels kind of,
somebody
yeah.
asked in the.
Go
Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, somebody asked in the chat, did they shoot or reshoot scenes, or was it all shot originally and CGI or changed? So I know that some of the actors came back to shoot some additional scenes. I know one that they said was brand new was at the very, very, very end when Bruce Wayne wakes up and goes out on his deck or whatever, and Martian Manhunter lands.
Right.
That was brand new. And originally that was going to be two Green Lanterns. And when I heard it was going to be two
Oh.
Green Lanterns, I was disappointed it wasn't two
Yeah,
Green
now I'm
Lanterns.
disappointed.
One of them was going to be Kilowog. I remember that one.
Hmm. Is that the big orc looking guy? Yeah,
Yes.
kind of.
Yep.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I would have preferred two Green Lanterns. I never really have read any much of Martian and Manhunter, so I don't know. I don't really have any attachment to that character, but yeah, but I liked all that epilogue stuff. It was cool. I think it was nice, even if we never get the movies, just to kind of leave that little imprint there to kind of show you, hey, this is, what kind of the rest of it kind of colors out the rest of the space. I thought that was fine. I mean, it would be cool to see, those other Justice League 2 and 3. But I don't think I could stand having Lois Lane killed, though. I don't think I would like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the main thing I would want to see is Darkseid. I would have
Yeah.
loved to have seen them go head to head. Darkseid. Let's go see his planet.
Yeah. Hmm.
Apocalypse. Yeah, Apocalypse. His the granny figure. I can't remember her name. Um, she's basically his mother, grandmother, or something like
Yeah.
that. But then his son, Orion, who ends up being like a human, is a good guy. There's
Hmm.
this really interesting dynamic between father and son being against each other. I mean, there's so many cool things they could have
No,
done.
Ryan's the one with like the little circle on his head, and he's like in the blue suit, and he has like the chair or whatever. Yeah,
Yep, that's
yeah,
him.
because he's in the New Gods. He's like the leader of them or
Oh,
something.
okay.
Yeah, or he's not like the
Yep.
leader. He's kind of like the Cyclops to the Professor X. I think I can't remember. It's been a while. There's another
Hmm.
leader's like an old guy, but he's like the young leader, if I remember right. But Yeah. So I think we can wrap up. There's one question in the chat. It says, "Did Marty eat all the popcorn he posted on social media?"
No, I gave a lot of it away to my son, and then I heard that if you take popcorn and put it in freezer bags and put it in the freezer, that it will save. And then when you get it out, just throw it in the microwave for about 30 seconds, and it's fresh and ready to go.
Really?
So there's your tip on how to save the theater
I
popcorn.
had never heard that before.
I hadn't either. And the people, it's basically there's a theater here that's not showing
Yeah.
movies, and every week you can order popcorn. You can go by and they just pick up a bag and they give it to you. And she always recommends that. I will say this at the very end. So I did pull up on Rotten Tomatoes,
Okay.
uh, the old score and the new score. Okay. So the original JLA critics gave it a 40 and the audience gave it a 71%. I was
Wow.
surprised it was that high at
Yeah.
71. It really was. For the new Snyder cut, critics gave it a 73, so it went from 40 to 73, and the audience is a 96.
Really?
So across the board, people like this version. Yes, it's 4 hours long. There's no way they would have let him release this in a
No.
theater. I think this was the only way he could have let it get out. And again, it's got problems. It is too
It does.
long. There's some things they probably could have cut out. But
Like
I'm
the slow
glad that we
motion.
got,
Man, I can't.
yeah,
So much. I think I in the group chat about 2 hours into it because I kind of watched it in little segments over like 2 or 3 days. No, 2 days. And then I said, you know what? I'm gonna take a shot. Every time it goes into slow motion, I'll be the drunkest I've ever been. And that held up through the whole movie. I mean, I don't want to be negative. I'm saying it in a funny way because like at the end when there's like the shot of all of them all standing, and it just pans across each of them, kind of just having that grin, and I'm like, Zack Snyder, like, come on, man. Like, you don't have to just hit me over the head so hard. Yeah, I don't know. I wish. I
um,
wish he could pull back on that a little bit, and then I think the movie would have been a lot better. But I don't know. Anyway, it's kind of nitpicky.
well, I was going to say the first one was so bad that I'm glad we got to see that the way it was originally
Yeah.
intended. It doesn't make it my favorite movie. It's not my favorite DC
What is your
movie,
favorite
but
DC
I
movie?
appreciate
Wonder Woman.
Wonder
Okay.
Woman. If you throw Joker in there, that one's up there too. If you consider that part of
Hmm.
that, so those
Oh,
two, 1 and 2, are up there.
well, for me, if you
Somebody
throw
asked.
those in, I'm saying the Nolan trilogy all day long. But
Oh, okay. I was just doing since Man of
sure,
Steel on. I was not including the Nolan
yeah.
stuff. Um, but somebody asked, what did you take away from the film emotionally after watching? I felt like Snyder had a lot about family and coming together after loss, all those heroes coming together. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Snyder, during the making of this movie, his child committed
Oh,
suicide.
I didn't
And
know that.
that's
Oh no.
Yeah, that's what took him off of this movie.
Oh
So
no.
I do think, well, at the very end of the movie, you see it's dedicated to Autumn, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. That was his daughter's name.
Oh, shame, man.
That's who this was for. So I think he did incorporate those
Show.
beats of the only hope that we can have as people is if we come together, even during times of loss and everything like that. So this was an ode to
Hmm.
her. I do think that too. So I'm also glad that he got to do that for her.
Yeah. Wow. That's. I knew that he had left for some loss, but I didn't really. You know me. I try not to read too much of the news about this stuff, and I didn't know what it was from. But it kind of makes you look at the movie in a different way in a lot of ways. Um,
Mhm.
wow. Yeah. Sure. I mean, producing these things, it makes you realize like what an effort it is with so many people. Because obviously he had to drop away for a period of time, but that's not something you just take a month off and come back from. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
I can't even you can't even explain to anybody how that will affect you. And um, so it's been a few years, and the fact that he even came back and did it, that says a lot. And everybody came back together, in the movie, but also like as a production crew or whatever, and and all the people involved. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, it's
Yep.
such a. It doesn't make you think sometimes like what kind of almost a miracle the MCU is, because I think about that sometimes because you think about, you and I are close to the same age, um, and if you think back to some of,
Well, thank you. That's kind.
I'm trying not to throw barbs, but you think back to the '80s though, Marty, like the Captain America movie that like went straight to VHS, and the Punisher movie that went to VHS, and um,
Yeah.
they kept trying to get this stuff off the ground, Marvel, for the longest time, and DC as well. I mean, we had the Superman movie and then nothing until the Batman movie in must have been '89 or something. And
Yep.
just the technology had to catch up, I think. But the fact that they pulled off, I mean, this movie as well. I mean, I don't want to keep talking, taking credit away from the DC, but the fact that they got this Snyder cut done now, with all that being said, and pushing all that in, and yeah, it's not perfect, and they maybe should have had some more lead up movies, but maybe there'll be some more stuff that they can color in around it after the fact. The fact that they got that even pulled off is really cool. But the MCU, the whole arc of that, I mean, we were talking in the group chat, and was it Jamie who said he went back and watched Age of Ultron, which I think for a lot of people is one of the weaker MCU movies.
Hmm.
But he saw all of these things after watching WandaVision and in Endgame and all this stuff that they sort of baked into that. And it's just they like who's ever going to be able to pull that off again? Even the people in charge of the MCU, I don't think will be able to.
That's why I know people are, oh, I'm excited about the next phase of Marvel. It's like, I don't know that you can replicate that. From the very first Iron Man movie, when Nick Fury shows up and says, I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative, then 22 or 23 movies
Yeah,
later, they wrap it
yeah,
up. It's amazing.
yeah. It is amazing that they even were able to pull that off. And part of the reason I think, Marty, is they also picked out like the peak of Marvel. That whole Infinity Gauntlet saga, I think, really
Hmm.
is probably the best arc that Marvel's ever had. If you take out some of the X Men stuff, because I honestly prefer X Men over other Marvel, but that's just me.
Hmm.
But I think if you take some of the X Men storylines out of there, that the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, and they didn't even use the Silver Surfer in any of these, which you know it is what it is. They couldn't do it, but they picked out
Right.
like the best arc, and then converted it and translated it and changed what they needed to change in the right way. Because they didn't just go literal translation, that wouldn't have worked. They changed it in the spots that
Hmm.
needed to be changed and built up these characters over time and just delivered on it. And it's kind of interesting to see. We can maybe close off with Falcon and Winter Soldier here, because yeah, I know you watched that too. Is you can kind of
Hmm.
start to see with WandaVision and even like the Captain Marvel movie. I rewatched that because I wanted to kind of catch up on the scroll stuff. And then, the Falcon and Winter Soldier and all this other stuff coming out. You can kind of see the wheels start to slowly grind up again. And I think they have such a cash cow that they can be patient. The
Mm.
executives can be patient, where I don't think these other executives are very patient. I feel
Right.
like I always want to blame the executives, but um, I think they pushed DC along too quickly, and they pushed Star Wars along too quickly in a lot of ways, and all these things. So if you can get some patient executives that, because people are going to come and see it. If there were no COVID, Black Widow would have made $100 million. Probably, unless it
Sure.
was garbage. But
Oh, way more than
yeah,
that.
I'm saying it's going to deliver. Like they're going to get their money back. Because look at WandaVision, is there all anybody can talk about, and Wanda was not a major character, and
Nope.
it's doing well. And Falcon and Winter Soldier, they're two B characters, and people are talking about
Hmm.
that. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but
Well, no, I was going to say, well, another thing I think they did an amazing job too is another one of the big MCU stories was Civil War, and they took a little bit of
yeah,
that
that's
and put
true.
it in the midst of all the Infinity Gauntlet
That's
stuff,
true.
which really created some interesting dynamics.
Yeah,
I will say that I know that we're kind of moving towards Secret Invasion. I was never a huge fan of that
no, yeah,
storyline. I'll trust them. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it and stuff. But like you said, Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet, whatever it was like that's an amazing
yeah,
arc, and I think they picked the best one to do. It's just the others. I'll watch it, but I'm just not as interested in those stories as I was in
yeah,
Infinity.
yeah. The X Men ones are the other ones that they've already ruined. Like a Phoenix Saga is really, I mean, that's amazing to me. And the Days of Future Past stuff, and I don't know, X-Men and Punisher were my two favorite Marvel comic books. So I'm definitely biased. I mean, there's so many like X-Men storylines. The whole Starjammer Brood War thing is so stupid, but I love it, and
Hmm.
but yeah,
I do want to see Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer is always one of my favorite characters because the whole Galactus
yeah,
thing I think is really
mm-hmm.
interesting. But I must admit, when you just look at the Silver Surfer on paper, it's like it's a dude on a surfboard.
Yeah,
I mean, this guy was from the '60s when everybody was into beaching and surfing and stuff like that.
yeah,
It's an odd character when you look at him. It's like, how does he get through space? He's on a
yeah,
surfboard. It's kind of
yeah.
weird.
It is weird. Yeah, I like that. I like that story. And the only time I read Surfer was during the Infinity stuff because there was like a big build up, and I don't know, somebody keyed me off that there was going to be a big story, and I started picking his stuff up, and it was drawn by I think Arthur Adams or Art Adams was the guy who has this really peculiar style of comic book art. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of like a cross between cartoony and Todd McFarlane somehow. Anyway,
Mm.
yeah.
Mhm. Oh, somebody in the chat said, I want them to do a Justice League Dark. I would, at one time, Guillermo Guillermo del
Yeah,
Toro? Is that
Del
right?
Tormo,
He,
I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
he was going to do Justice
Del
League
Toro.
Dark, and I would have
Uh-huh.
loved to see him do that because there's some interesting characters on the dark side, including like um, the Constantine, the magician, Zatanna.
Mm.
There's these really cool characters on that side that Etrigan, the demon, and all
Oh,
this
I remember
stuff.
that
He would have
guy.
done an amazing
Yeah.
job with that. Yeah, he was basically a demon, but he could like change into it from a human to a demon and stuff like
Right.
that. So the whole Professor, another one of my Dr. Fate is another one of my favorite characters from DC. So he would have been in that stuff. So the whole mystical, magic, weird
Mm.
stuff, I think would have been cool to
Mm.
investigate.
That does sound interesting. Okay, Marty. Thanks for jumping on. That was fun. Fun talking with you again.
I, I'll do this anytime. If you want to do a mid-season Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm all up for
Yep.
that. Whatever you want to do,
Okay.
man.
Well, we might have to do that. I know we got something kind of planned end of April. Um,
Mm,
but maybe we can jump on there. I'll see if Derek. I'm gonna have a guest on. If you guys don't, I haven't announced it or anything, but I'm gonna have a guest talking about. Well, I don't want to spoil it, but it's during Earth Week, so that's a spoiler. But he's a super smart professor guy, and I'll announce it more, formally later once I get it more clear in my head. But maybe at that point, I'm trying to think of where we'll be in Sword because it's only 6 episodes, right?
it is only 6 episodes,
So
and
let me.
so
All right,
episode,
I'll
let's
tell you.
see, 2, 3, 4.
Two.
It will end on the 23rd.
So it'll be just like WandaVision. We'll do the episode right before the finale. If
Okay.
if you want to jump on for that, I'll see if Derek is watching it. Maybe he'll want to talk about it too. Maybe split it up or something. But okay, thanks everybody for joining and asking your questions and whatnot. And thanks again, Marty.
Sure.
And everybody have a good Monday.